Hey, how's it going? This is going to be the second part of making this beautiful fantasy medieval windmill. Now, in the first part, we made the basic structure, which is made mostly out of cardboard. If you haven't seen that, you should definitely go check it out. But the second stage now is going to be making all of this beautiful decoration and then painting it. So, yeah, this is going to be a very interesting video. This is the part that I love the most about making these dioramas. And yeah, let's hop into it and let's see the decoration.
So, as I'm going to be making terrain and decorating in this video, I'm going to start off by making some stones. This is a little trick I got from the Nord Forge. She makes really awesome videos and, well, she's got like a few million subscribers, so she doesn't need my shout out. But basically, you mix up some casting plaster, and after making these little tinfoil molds, I'm just going to pour the casting plaster in and leave them to the side to dry. For the river, I'm going to be doing this really neat trick I learned from Terrain Made Easy, where I just pour on this white glue and put on these paper towels onto it after spreading it around. Now I'm going to do this like 4 or 5 times and leave it to dry, and then push the paper around right before it dries to make a really nice texture on the river. By this point, the rocks had dried off, and as you can see, these come out really nice. It gives a really beautiful rock texture. I'm just going to break them off to make it into a bit more manageable pieces, and we'll be using these along the build. Now, Terrain Made Easy also gives this really nice tip. You want to use the casting plaster to decorate the ground. I basically mixed up the casting plaster just the same as I would normally and ripped up some toilet paper and put in. That makes it a bit more durable and a bit more varied in its texture. And then I just kind of slap that all across the entire bit of the cardboard. This hides the cardboard corrugation and makes a really nice texture. Where you can see here that it's a bit of a different color, I just covered it in white glue and sprinkled on some sand, which I did to the other part later. I cut some small round skewers and just glued them on to start laying out one of the fences. And for bushes, I just ripped up these dish sponges. You can find these really at any store. I guess you'll have to work with the materials that you have. Ripped up an old welcome mat to get a nice tall grass texture, and got some rocks and stuff from the outside. Now, sadly, I lost some of the footage of me attaching these, which was kind of an important step, but you can just kind of look at what I did and piece it together. It's just really gluing the rocks in the areas you want rocks, gluing the sponges and the rug in the areas that you want the sponges and the rug. I sprinkled on some dried leaves also that I had dried and crushed up, and marked out the fence area. It's just kind of making it the way that you want it to look. Next, it was time for some tree building. Now, I'm probably going to make a more in-depth video because there's a lot to be said about that, but here are the basics. I wrapped some metal wiring around something that I thought was a good size. I just cut one side up to make it into these long strips, and using the plier, I stuck it into the opposite side that wasn't cut and just kind of twisted them around to start making the trunk. After that, I was left with all these little wires sticking out that I just started splitting into branches, twisting them up, splitting them again, twisting them again, until I was left with singular wires on the edges. After that, I cut off the bottom to make the roots of the little loop. This is exactly the same thing as I did at the top, just at a smaller scale. Then I took the pliers and cut all of the extra little pieces that were sticking out too far. Next, I covered up the wires with some masking tape because the texture of the wires obviously doesn't look very realistic, and also it's very hard to paint. Then I covered the branches in white glue and stuck onto it the little bits of foam that I had used for the bushes before. I just kind of covered that for the main thick parts of the foliage, and then I just put on some steel wiring and doused that in glue across the top to make the thinner bits of leaves. And finally, it was time to start painting. I just took a nice red spray paint to make a nice base coat to make everything the same color. I went ahead and textured, did the fences and the texturing for the rest of the build, adding the sand, the rocks, the fields on the other side. At this point, I had bought some nicer spray paints and decided to kind of make the base coat, instead of just having it all be red, to make some colors. Some green for the trees and for the grass. I put some brown across where the paths are going to be, sprinkling on a few different kind of shades and colors. I put some gray where the stone texture is going to be at the bottom of the windmill. And yeah, just kind of make a really nice base coating. Once the base coat was done, it was time to start painting on with some acrylic paints. This is still a base coat. I just got the colors that I knew that I wanted in each area and just put on just, a fat amount, and without really worrying too much about making it look nice, just getting the base colors: green for the grass, blue for the river, yellow, brown for the sand. Now, I'm going to go ahead on the bricks and start doing the next stage, which is texture variation. So as you can see here, I just painted a few bricks, some different color. I did the same thing on the roof. I did some gray ones for the roof. I got some darker brown and started splashing it on to where I thought, some moisture would gather on the path, making it just a bit more muddy and dirty. Same with the leaves, same with everything, just texture variating it all up to make nothing boring. Now, this is a really, really important and good part. It's a part that I really like. It's called the wash, where you basically mix water and black poster paint, and you paint that across more of the stone texture areas. It goes into all of the crevices and makes a really nice shadow. Now, you can't do black on the trail or the wood because it sometimes comes out a little green and stuff. So I mixed up a brown wash and did that on the trail. This really makes everything look more muddy and realistic. And now for my favorite part of painting, which is the dry brushing. This is where you just get a brush and you put on a really, really small amount of light paint across the top. As you can see here, the difference, it makes a huge difference, especially on the stone and the more rough textures. And you just paint on the same color that's already there, just much, much lighter, and really lightly just brush it on. It really highlights and accentuates all of the edges and the colors, making it really, really nice. I did even a bit of green on the bushes to make like the brighter leaves across the top. After that, it's just a game of adding in props and decorations. Barrels, little baskets of apples or whatever, little bags, little hay bales. I'll probably make a video kind of going over the different ways that I make hay out of string and out of, old brooms and twigs. And there's all kinds of really, really neat techniques to doing that. But I'm not going to go into it in this video. There'll be another video probably talking about making little props and little just scatter terrain.